And what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove here with Rotoballer's official MMA podcast, Tap That. This is another interlude episode, and with me today is a fighter from the Cincinnati, Kentucky area. Well, the fights happen in northern Kentucky. His hometown is Dayton, Ohio. This is Ilyaz Mamadaliyev, and he's got a big fight coming up. It's a big fight for him. It's a big fight for Premier MMA. It's going to be their first show in about a year. He's making his professional debut. He's the former Premier MMA Amateur Lightweight Champion. He's going to be taking on Ryan Santana in both of their professional debuts. And it's going to be Ryan Santana is the former Premier MMA Featherweight Champion. So a lot of stuff going on there. And as I said, with me is Ilyaz. How's it going today, man?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me. You are right. It is a very tough matchup coming up. He is not just a former Premier champion. He was also a champion for a company called IT Fight Series, which that's where I made my amateur debut. And we were originally going to fight for a belt, I believe, for a different promotion. And I got the idea. I actually told Billy, who's the promoter for Premier, if we could do a champion versus champion where we put up our belts for it. He puts up his, IT Fight Series lightweight belt on the line, and I put mine on the line. And he thought it was a good idea. Winner takes, the other person's belt. And then there was also another option where I would drop down to 145 pounds, but I walk around heavier. And for me to do that, I would probably have to do that when I turn professional, which that's also in my plans as a pro. I want to drop down because I carry around, a little bit of extra weight. And at 55, I'm fighting closer to my natural weight. Usually I'm, if I let myself go, I could get as high as, 180, 185. But when I'm, working out and training and everything, I stay around 170, 165, which I'm a smaller lightweight, but I like the challenges. My last fight, I took out 170 against a really big guy. And, everyone thought I was crazy for it. My camp for that fight sucked, to be honest, because as big of a, they told me if I win that fight, I get to turn professional. I'm not going to necessarily say I didn't take it serious. I didn't take it as serious as I should have, and when I went into the fight, I was worried that I was going to get tired. So I didn't get to throw as much and I was hesitating a lot. But for this camp, I did everything I could possibly do. And for me, the key to my victories recently has been being able to be ready mentally, because physically there have been times when I trained and, I was in the best shape possible. But if I wasn't there mentally, all that goes out the window, because for me personally, doing everything right mentally helps me the most.
So I watched that fight against Doug Davidson, the welterweight fight, and not only, was that guy was pretty souped up, at 170. He was a pretty strong looking guy, and that mat, you guys were slipping all over the place. So would you say, you're not looking to take any more fights at 170? Was that probably the last one, or was that like an opportunistic kind of fight?
No. I will definitely. For me, honestly, like if it's a good matchup and everything, Billy knows this too. He'll offer me fights all the time. And, most of the times I'm healthy. I rarely get injured. I get injured outside of fighting more often than I do in a fight. And when the opportunity comes by, I was actually going to take a fight at, I had this crazy dream of taking a fight from heavyweight and going all the way down as low as I can, and even if it meant like I'm not at that weight, I was going to put weights in my pocket, whatever I could possibly do. I just had this thing where I was like, I want to win a fight at each weight, and there were opportunities at 85. I've also had opportunities at 205. Like I was going to rematch this guy that I had fought before for Premier. I wanted to get back, and I was depressed at the time and everything. And I knew the best way would probably be fighting. And the guy was walking around heavier, and he told me, well, I can't make 55. I was like, okay, what can you make? And he said he's around, 205. And I have fought him before. So I was like, okay, let's make it easier for you. You don't have to cut anything. We'll, agree on the weight. And he ended up not taking it. But I do tend to take, crazy fights, and that 170 fight, that definitely won't be the last time. I want to definitely take that. 55 is where I'll be around for now, and then 45 if I can, get myself there healthily, because um, I, I I want it to be fun. If I start cutting that much weight, I don't think it's going to become fun at this point. At
Well,
that.
yeah, like this is a perfect fight for Premier MMA to come back with. I mean, you've got a huge following on social media. In fact, when I asked Billy, I was like, "Do you have any like fighters you think would be good for an?" He was like, "I got just the guy." He
Uh-huh.
knew exactly who I should talk to, and so what do you think it is about like your fight style and your personality that has like garnered so much popularity and attention? When you're, I mean, super young at 22 for a guy that already has 9 amateur fights. What do
Mhm.
you think has built that up so quick?
I think the reason, for example, why Billy likes me is because I always put on a show. I, when I first started this, my plan was to go undefeated. That was my crazy dream, 5-0. Then I turned professional, but then life, doesn't go as planned sometimes. And what do you do then? Do you give up, or you just keep working? I chose to keep working, and I realized, hey, I might not win every fight, but I want to put on a show for people where, you know they're excited. They want to see me again. And I've had, as far as Premier goes, I've stayed loyal with them, and I've been fighting for them. And you know, Billy is an amazing guy, and I've had a great team, that helps me with my camps, Vision MMA. And right now, I go up to Drive MMA for sparrings. That's something I've been doing. I quit working. I want, as a pro, I want to focus on just training. I have sponsors, local sponsors that are helping me out, fulfill my dream. I just always want to put on a good fight, a fight of the night. Last time, I didn't get it, but every fight I've had a fight of the night. And I think that's what gets people to watch me. And not just that, but I started young. I had my first fight after my 18th birthday. I did what I said I would do. And in a time where a lot of people are, dealing with a lot of drama and everything, I've been able to focus on something. And, you know, even if I have hardships, I still try to find a way to get through those hardships. Everything basically that I want that's good in life, it always comes to me. But first, I learn a lesson. Like, I feel like if I had started my career in 2016, I won my first fight, then I had 2 losses in a row. Had I won, my dream was 5-0 and then turned professional, maybe I wouldn't be as humble. Maybe I wouldn't go through all those things that led me to become who I am now. And I feel like, a lot of people only thank God when good things happen, but I thank God for all the bad that's happened too, because it's made me who I am, and it's shown me who the real people are, who the fake people are. When I first started, my biggest thing was I thought everybody loved me. I was like, I'm young, I'm doing what I want, what I told people I would do, and I cared more about what the people think than what I think. And I was fighting to impress them basically. And once I realized that after a loss, people don't care about you, it's only 5 seconds of fame. I realized I have to start doing things for myself and what makes me happy, basically. And that ever since that, I've been doing really good. And I've just, honestly, just focusing on yourself is the best thing you can do, and your family. The people, as much as I love the support, I know that if I lost, they wouldn't care. They would, talk bad about me. And that you could use that as motivation, but when you know the truth, it's impressive. It's nice.
So how did those 3 early losses, and you haven't lost since 2017, but you're like, how did those 3 early losses, what did you learn from? How did they cause you to go back technically to the drawing board a little bit? Like, what did you pick up from those and go roaring forward with a head of steam like that?
Honestly, when it came to those losses, what kills me more is the fact that I know if I, with the mentality I have now, had I had those fights and I could redo them, I would win. And what hurts more is like when I lost. I don't want to say they were worse than me, but I feel like I should have easily won had I focused on myself. And if I was doing what I do now, those should have been easier fights. But because of For example, my first two losses came when I was in I was still in high school, and I wasn't mature enough when it comes to the fighting. Life-wise, I was always ahead of everybody else, but when it came to school and then working, I always would have to find ways to be able to train, and I didn't have a lot of free time. And now, and then especially my last loss back in 2017, that one was a lot tougher because it came against a guy who was being a little disrespectful and everything. And I honestly, that loss will always haunt me, but you got to move forward. The guy tried to rematch me in amateurs and stuff. For me, he's not doing that well. After he fought me, he took a break, and then now he's just getting back into it. I personally just wanted to move forward. That's all you got to do. You take a loss, you learn from it and you move forward. And my game has definitely improved ever since that. I like to strike a lot, but I've had more confidence when it comes to going to the ground and my cardio. I always, even when I fought that guy at 170, he was. If you looked at him, he looked ripped and he looked like he was going to tear me apart. But I was able to get him tired. And my mistake in that fight was I should have made it a title fight at 170 because it was vacant and nobody was their champion. Had I known, I just wasn't confident in my cardio. But I ended up out cardioing him. So that was my regret basically for that fight.
So when I watched your fights, you come with a lot of you throw more leg kicks than I've ever seen at someone at the amateur level like that, and being so young. And it's interesting you mentioned the cardio, because like you always look fresh at the end of fights, and you've taken so many fights to the judges' scorecards, and so you're throwing like spinning back kicks, side kicks, spinning back because you suplex to dude. It's like, what is your exact? I know you've been with Vision MMA for a while now, but yes. What is your like training background?
When I first started, it was a gym, a local gym here called Heated Combat MMA. It closed down at this point, but all the teenagers in our school, like middle school, they started going there, and most of them fell off, and none of them actually ended up taking a fight. But ever since that, when I started, I wanted to learn and get be the best I could possibly be. When I started, I remember being, beat up and everything, and just like anybody else when you start. But I always had that heart. Like that's what separated me from other people. And once my kickboxing came around a little bit, then I ended up going to a boxing gym, and I got my hands to where I was confident in. And then I can take a punch. I've never been dropped. I've never been, rocked whether it's sparring or in a fight. That's something I take pride in, because once that starts happening, I wrong. But as far as heart goes, I that are more skilled, that might be, able to kick better than me or punch better or wrestle or whatever. But like I've said many times before, they will have to either put me out or something for me to stop coming, because tired is not going to cut it for me. I'm going to keep going until my heart beats, because, fighting is, in all of humans, like, and basically you have to have no quit. You have to, if they want to beat me, they're going to have to put me out. That's been my mentality. Like, you're going to have to put me out, whether you choke me out or knock me out or something, but you got to stop me to where, the referee won't, well, basically the referee separates us, and that's it. That's how I want it to end. My kickboxing has been getting better, and the more confidence I have, the more things, like spinning back fist or kick, it's all about confidence, I'm but I'm getting better, and I want to try new things. And it depends on stylistically too. Like if it's an opponent that's, trying to take it to the ground, or whether they're standing. Most of the times, even when it's guys that want to stand with me, they'll get hit a couple times and they start becoming a wrestler. And I want to make sure I keep improving, and I'm focused on myself instead of them.
So you mentioned, like, how crazy it's been for anybody to fight or do anything as of, through 2020. And yes. I believe your last fight was in August of 2019. So and I know Premier MMA, they had, a couple of events they were trying to do in 2020 and it didn't work out. And I know, Billy had a lot of challenges with that. But what were the challenges in staying focused, staying in the right shape, and then, now training for a big fight, your professional debut in January of 2021?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so obviously it was hard for everybody, and you got to take positive from everything. For example, this when it happened, I was working in a factory in the beginning of the year, and I remember like any job you get, no matter how much it pays or what it does. I've had jobs that paid a lot of money, jobs that were just average, but every single time I knew, I don't fit there. Like there's nothing wrong with doing those jobs. There's certain people that enjoy that, they work 20, 30 years in a business. But for me, this year made me realize that like I have to go out there and chase what I have, because when there's fights, scheduled and everything, and you don't take it, it's different. But then when you can't do it, like it's not allowed, it makes you hungrier. Like I couldn't wait for there to be a fight date so I could come out and fight. And when they announced the November card and they were trying to do it, I remember taking it, and I wasn't in as good shape as I am now. That was another, like when it got postponed in November, I remember, I think it was 10 or 12 days before the fight. I remember being upset. I was like, I wanted this so bad because the year was so, horrible. I wanted that to be the one good, not the one good thing. I got engaged this year. That was amazing, and
Oh, congratulations.
I got closer with family. Thank you very much. I got close with family. As you know, when there was, quarantine, everybody got to stay home, and, I, I got to experience family love even more, and we got to spend time a lot more with each other. And basically, now that the fight got postponed, I had more time to prepare and do the right things, because I remember in my November camp I was saying, well, for my next fight I'm going to do this. I had the opportunity to do all that through this camp, and I've been in camp longer and my weight was lower, and basically I think I'm going to put on a good show. And if everything goes well, and with game plan, it should be a fun night.
So just to back up, you were born in Russia. You yourself are Turkish. How did your
Yes.
hometown get to be Dayton, Ohio?
So I moved to the U.S. back in '06. We ended up moving to Arizona first. We were there for about 4 years, and then our family started, all of our relatives and friends, they started moving to Dayton, because the houses, you could get them for a cheaper price and then fix them up and basically get a good deal with them. And we ended up moving here in 2010, summer of 2010. Once we moved here, we had there's a big Turkish community in this area, and I believe the last time I heard there was over 1,000 families here. And even though they're across the U.S., this Ohio has the most. And basically, that's how we ended up moving here, and I love it here. I wouldn't move anywhere else. I'll travel, for vacations, but I like it here. I feel at home here.
So, big fight coming up. You clearly have a lot of ambitions in the fight game, and a lot of, as you said, with the, wanting to win one in every class at that one point. So what are your goals for 2021, concerning that you're coming into this year with a good amount of attention on you and a really good amount of momentum?
I want to live in the moment. As far as the ambitions go, when you set out plans, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, okay, by the end of 2021, I want to do this, do this. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've changed myself with maturing. I've realized living in the moment is a lot better than, planning ahead, because when you live in the moment, like for me right now, the goal is to win the next fight. I'm not worried about what I'm going to do the next fight, because it all depends on how this one goes. If it goes well, I know that the next one will be bigger, and then bigger and bigger. So therefore, it's not just with fighting, with everything else. I just live day by day. And, of course I want to do good towards the end of the year. I want to end it better than I did this year. But I just want to live in the moment and, stay as active as possible, be in the gym a lot more, and take fights. I know Billy said there's going to be like 6 events this year. I have his next card is on April 10th. I was trying to take it, but that's when my wedding is happening. I was trying to throw my wedding for a Sunday the next day, but then everybody was telling me that I might get cuts and everything, and I'm not going to look good at the wedding. So I'm thinking I'm going to skip out on that one, and then I'll take the one. I believe he'll have it in May or June. That's when I'll be back in.
So we mentioned Ryan Santana before. He had the IT Fight Series lightweight championship. He was the premier amateur featherweight champion. And I know, you're pretty confident that any fight you're in is going to be an exciting one. But how do you think, what's the stylistic matchup here?
To be honest, I haven't seen too much tape on this guy. And from what I know, he's going to bring heart. I feel like no matter what I hit him with, he's going to continue coming. And that's how I am. And stylistically, if he fights and he puts up a dog fight like I'm expecting to, this should be one of my best fights because of the way he strikes, the way he comes forward and everything. I do good against guys like that. I do really good. And it all depends on how he's going to do. And then with me and him both debuting, and then the time, normally it would be 3 minutes long. Now it's going to be 5-minute rounds. I can't wait to see the difference there. I feel like that's going to benefit me more because, like you said, at the end of each fight, I'm fresh. And that's because usually the first round, I adjust to the opponent's style really quickly. And then I start picking up as the fight goes. Like, halfway through the first round, I already have them figured out. I know their speed. I know what they're going to throw, and I can adjust to their style. That's one thing I do really good. I can adapt to any situation. And in this fight, I'm expecting a dog fight. He's really tough, and I want him to push me. If he wants to beat me, I want him to put me out, and I want him to push like never before. I want to put on an exciting fight.
So with Vision MMA, I've never I don't have any personal experience with anybody that has trained there before. So what are some of the more unique aspects of Vision that you think give you a more unique edge as opposed to people who train at other gyms?
Okay, so as far as the team goes, they have 2 guys that are fighting on the card that I'm fighting on. There's going to be a heavyweight, Jeff Fitch, and then there's a middleweight. He's going to be fighting there. We call him TJ. I believe it's Tussle. And then they're both going to be fighting that day. That's going to be fun. And then I know guys that I trained with at a different gym. They're going to be on that card. So what would be the difference between us and everybody else? Honestly, it's like other people. How would I put it? We don't only work hard, but you have that team that just supports each other through everything, and I feel like that's how they are, and they're always there for you, even if it's not training, and that's very important because I have trained at multiple gyms, and when you go there, they just care about you while you're there. They care about your money, and that's it. I've had them help a lot. There's a guy there, Joe Miller. He's helped me a lot. He used to own it. Now I believe he's like a coach. And then there's Brandon Leno. He's also a coach. And then Ezra, he holds pads for me. And they always have this talk. And there are days when you go in and you might not be feeling it, but they know how to push you in the basically the right way without being disrespectful or without meaning any harm. But that's what they've been able to do. And I've stayed loyal with them, since I was maybe 14, 15. I've been with them, and I got to see most of those guys fight. And I have really good teammates there. I do as a pro now. I stay there. I go there a few times a week, and then I try to go out for sparring with other gyms, just to get the idea of going with new guys. That kind of shows me what a fight could go like, because I don't know what their style is. When you train with certain guys for so long, you figure out how they fight, how they train, and basically you're not learning anything new. So I like to go out for sparring and try to roll with somebody new and see what I can learn and how I can adjust to them. But I love that team, and I'm going to stay with them.
So In the past year, like, have you gotten to follow any of the big MMA event, like any Bellator or UFC? Like, have you had the time to like pay attention to any of that?
Oh yeah. I constantly watch. I don't watch it as often. There were times when from 2000 maybe 12 or 13 all the way till 2018 or 19, I watched every single event, whether it was on, pay-per-view or not. I would watch it, and it's interesting. My dad is a big fan of fighting too. He'll watch it with me. My cousin is, and my younger brother. We would always go out to a sports bar, and we would watch. And I do stay, especially the UFC. And then if there's like big boxing events, I like to watch that. Bellator, that's something I definitely watch because I feel like if I do everything right this year, I will be getting a call from them pretty soon.
Yeah, like, there, for people who don't watch a lot of MMA, it's hard to explain the excitement that leads up to one of those Saturday nights where there's a big pay-per-view on. And this has been a year where there's been more UFC events than in any year ever, and we've gotten to see so much activity from so many different fighters. Who do you think was your favorite fighter to watch in the past year?
In the past year, there's a new guy from Russia. His name is Hamza Chimaev. I really love watching him and how like he's just fighting everybody and he's not scared. He's been good. And then I obviously with Khabib returning, I watched that. And then Connor's return is coming up. I can't wait to watch that. And I watched it last year too when he fought Cerrone. I Fedor didn't fight this year, but I like watching Fedor and George St. Pierre. But they didn't, even though they didn't get to compete, I still get to watch their highlights all the time, their training videos. And I basically, I don't have anybody that I am like a crazy fan of because I'm a crazy fan of the sport and I like to watch everybody. And if they're competing, and I like Jorge Masvidal. He fights really good too. I like anybody that basically has a style where they put on a show and they're entertainers. I like that.
So, how do you see that McGregor Poirier rematch playing out? Since it has, that's those two fighters are a bit different since they last fought,
Uh,
and it's a really chaotic time for the lightweight division with Khabib possibly retiring.
yes. Okay. So in that fight, I do believe they both have improved since the first fight. Um, I feel like still though Connor has an advantage because of the fact that he can handle big fights like that better than Poirier can. Because when Dustin, he has that dog in him, but with the magnitude of that big of a fight, I feel like Connor can handle that pressure. And honestly, when you're nervous and you get into that cage, it's a disadvantage. Like I know Connor gets nervous too, but he can handle it a lot better. And I feel like it's going to be a longer fight than the first one, and they're both going to probably tag each other. I want to see if it's going to end up going to the ground, if Dustin's going to try to take him down or anything. But I feel like it's going to eventually he's going to end up catching Dustin and either TKO. I don't think he'll knock him out, but he'll probably end up TKOing him.
All right, so let's close this out the way that we did in the first interview, and that is, who are your top 5 MMA fighters of all time, and give a little bit of why as to each, if you can.
It won't be ranked 1 through 5, but I can name 5 of them.
Perfect.
When I first got into MMA, I remember, of course, watching Fedor, and not just because he was from Russia, but he was dominating at the time, and he was he was doing so well. I remember watching him, and he had this persona about him, and I know you know him too. And he would just go in there and fight, and he didn't show anything else, no emotions, no nothing. And to me, being a quiet person and a shy person, that right away made me feel like, okay, I can do this too. I don't know, it was somebody I looked up to. I like George St. Pierre. I still, till this day, believe he's the most complete fighter. He can beat you at what you're good at. And to me, that's crazy because he looks at fighting differently. Most people just, take a fight and that's it. He studies differently. He's just a complete fighter, like a perfect fighter. And then, of course, when Connor came around, I loved watching him because it was something different. He was this entertainer that could back it up, and he had crazy ideas and people didn't believe it. And then he would end up doing it. And even if he lost, like most people will lose on that big of a level, if you lose, you think it's embarrassing. That's it. Everyone is talking about you. You're not going to return. But then he would find a way to return. And with the amount of money that he has to find a motivation to continue fighting, that's crazy. And that inspires me. And then I would say I've been a fan of Jorge Masvidal for a long time too, even when he wasn't popular. I know he became popular after the Ben Askren knockout, and then the Darren Till fight. But I was a fan of him before that because he would fight like a dog, and he just loved fighting, and he would just come forward even if he took decision losses or whatever it would be. He would still find a way to fight like a dog, and I personally like that. And then fifth, let's see. It is kind of tough, but
I'll give you some time to think. With the fact that what you mentioned about Connor is that he handles loss way. A lot of people take those losses and they're right back on the trash talk train and just trying to talk away the loss. But he handles loss better than most fighters who have way less to lose and made much less of a show about themselves before the fight. That guy entertains on the full 360-degree level, outside the fight and then in the cage. But he handles loss better than most fighters you'll ever see.
Yeah, and honestly, when he first came around, he was really entertaining. But then I'm sure you realized too, a lot of people were trying to be like him, like they were trying to do the same persona, and they weren't being original with it. But it was getting annoying because they would just talk and talk and talk, and they just couldn't back it up, and it kind of make them, it made him look silly, basically, And he's one of a kind. Like maybe eventually there will be someone that comes around that can be as popular or something, but for now he's the most popular. And he does handle losses like you would think, on a level. And sometimes how crazy his trash talk would get, and a lot of people were like, okay, that's it, he's probably not going to even do an interview or something, and then he'll come out and do an interview and win the people over because they understand his passion, they understand how much fighting means to him, and he would be able to basically, they see a human side to him instead of this like persona that he's like perfect or something. And I feel like anytime humans see that in you, where you're not perfect and you make mistakes, they always want to see how you bounce back. And I feel like that's even if you're not undefeated, that's a better story. For example, with Khabib being undefeated, had he ever lost, I wonder like how he would handle it, and then how people would handle it. We never got to experience it because he retired, but I was always interested in that, basically.
Yeah, well, like Colby Covington comes to mind when you think of one of the copycats, or maybe like Kevin Lee and some of those like press conferences afterwards. And it's like, it wasn't that they were doing the same thing. It's that I believe that when other guys are doing it, they're putting on an act. They're being a character. When Connor's doing it, he's authentic. That is him.
Yes. That you said it right. That's what they try. And when it becomes an act, you can tell right away because, for example, they'll put on the fight, but then afterwards, when they hug it out and everything, like remember the Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal fight? I was kind of hoping that in the end they would keep their word when they were like, we're not going to shake hands and stuff. I know it's all about respect, but I feel like as a man, if you say that much about somebody, you should just fight like you would, if you were a kid. Like men do that all the time. They get in an argument, they fight, and then that's it. They go on separate ways. I feel like that's how it should be, because when you come back and you're hugging, and now at this point you're just respecting each other, you love each other, basically. To me, that seems like an act, and I feel like a lot of fans hate that too.
Oh yeah, like the beefs that Connor starts, they last for years, and he'll fight him 5 times if they want, and if the money's right. But he says stuff to people that's like, it's not as it's not about their family or anything like that that would, make you want to fight them at the press conference, but it's like insulting to their manhood and to, everything they've built up as a fight. He's grabbing Aldo's belt. He's throwing these kicks at the stare downs. He's learning Portuguese just so he can talk insane trash to Jose Aldo at the press conferences. And like after that, if it really is authentic, there really shouldn't be any handshaking and hugging it out after the fight.
Right. I remember watching those press conferences at school. My science teacher would always, when everybody would be at lunch, I loved the sport so much, especially back then. That's when Connor was around, and it was, starting to, like, as there were new fans coming in and everything. I remember during lunch, I would skip lunch just to go to that class and, get to watch videos with the teacher and basically watch fighting and talk about my dreams and everything. And honestly, in the beginning, like, sometimes like you'll make plans and stuff, and then you have those days where you think like, okay, am I really going to make it? Like for me, honestly, I don't, like, I've always wanted to be in the UFC or Bellator or any big organization like that. But I've already accomplished in my eyes, like, a lot for my age, not just for my age, but in the sport also. Like you said, I've had 9 fights, and I'm only 22, and I'm going to continue fighting as long as my body allows it. And I want to be comfortable in life. I don't have to make millions as long as I'm comfortable and, I'm good with my family, all that as well. And I stay out of, trouble. I think I'll be doing just fine in life.
All right. So did we arrive at who's going to round out the top 5 favorites?
I would say Dominic Cruz. In my fights, I like to use footwork a lot. I move around differently than a lot of MMA fighters. Like you'll see them flat-footed and, they don't use movement a lot. They just come forward, and a lot of people can do that. But me, I personally like to fight going backwards and countering. And even if the movement is not like Dominic Cruz, but I feel like that's somebody that I have to put in my top 5. He's incredible. And him also, he's one of those people that handles loss nicely too and humbly.
I mean, talk about an authentic personality. I don't think Dominic Cruz gets enough credit. The trash he talks about people he plays the mental game at a different level. The trash he talks to Dillashaw and what he said to Faber over the years, those are real beefs. That's real dislike between those guys that comes from like a personal place. And he really gets inside people's heads with the things that he chooses to say to people.
I believe he's one of the smartest trash talkers. He doesn't just say anything out of anger. It's more calculated. Like he'll say it on the spot. And I know he does commentating and stuff too. Maybe that's where he gets that ability to be able to do that. But he's very smart and intelligent. He knows what to say. He doesn't even have to cuss or anything. He'll point out your insecurities to you. And when you're told what your insecurities are, you at that point you have nothing to say, and then it'll start becoming like, when as a kid somebody says something to you and then you say it back and you're like, no, that's you. That's what it becomes, and it makes them look silly. That's why his trash talk is a little different.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, his footwork, I thought even in that like last fight, that he ended up losing, but still, I thought there was a moment in that fight where he looked like he was putting it together. And, that footwork, it doesn't matter if Dominic Cruz is coming off of 3 catastrophic injuries and he's 48 years old, that presents challenges to anybody he steps in there with.
Right. It does. And I know he has a comeback fight coming up. I can't wait to see that and see how that goes.
All right, folks. Well, this has been another interlude episode of Rotoballers MMA Podcast. Tap That. This is Brady Grove. We were here with Ilyaz Mamadaliyev today. And man, I really appreciate you being on the show. Good luck in your upcoming fight. Cannot wait to watch it. And good luck to you in the future, man.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And then we'll do a interview after the fight. How does that sound?
I would absolutely love to do that. That sounds awesome. And folks, we got the 3 UFC cards coming up between January 16th and the 23rd, another 3-fight week that the UFC is putting on. So folks, have a good time in between then, and enjoy whatever fights come on in between them, but enjoy the ones that are coming up. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.